And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast. Rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. Who is able to make war with him?
Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to the Midnight Ride. It is once again my great honor to invite each and every one of you into the Now You See TV studios here at the Puritan Farm. Tonight, I guarantee you that we're going to have a very moving presentation. Our subject tonight is a subject we've never devoted an entire Midnight Ride to, cattle mutilations. And we're going to find that this dovetails in many other directions. So things are going to get moving right now because we are now
Live. What's up, guys? No, you're not having a visual disturbance, but you're looking at Substitute John Pounders tonight. Today, Brian Reese back in the house. Here we are back on a Midnight Ride. John planned on being back here tonight, but he, unfortunately, with the dental procedure going on, he had some still healing going on. But I just want to say he's healing up better than anticipated. So that people are anticipating a longer haul, but he's done better, and his healing has helped. God has healed him. So speaking of that, we got a lot of things going on here on the Midnight Ride. If you've never been to the Midnight Ride, here you are tonight on NYSTV. I'm just a substitute, John Pounders, but it's a blessing to be here tonight. I have a few announcements. I want to reveal some stuff to you that's just so interesting, on behalf, and without further ado, John Pounders, myself, and David Carrico tonight, we're going to reveal something super special here. And it's something we've been planning for a while, but we are going to have a conference, folks. It's going to be called Spiracy Con. It's going to be epic. We've been planning this for so long, but guess what? This August, 5 months from now, we're going to go to Cave City, Kentucky. The convention center down there is immaculate. It's a beautiful place. Lots to do around there. Tourist attractions everywhere. It's not too far from Mammoth Cave. We got a lot of interesting things there. It's going to go on that day. The dates are August the 22nd, the 23rd. Hope you can join us and be with us this evening or that evening, those 2 nights at the Spiracy Con conference. And it's just going to be awesome. So I have a few things to disclose with that. So have you ever heard of Stonehenge? Right? Everybody's heard of Stonehenge on NYSTV Midnight Ride. So guess what? VIP tickets will be on sale, right? So the VIP tickets, the sales will be going on sale here in a couple of weeks. With that being said, there'll be VIP tickets. They're limited, but we're going to have a special access passes, early access to the event. But we're also going to have a Kentucky Stonehenge. We're going to go to the Kentucky Stonehenge. We're going to have a shuttle bus. We're going to have all kinds of good things going on. Brother David Carrico, John Pounders, and myself will be there, and we're going to do a tour of the Stonehenge in Kentucky. And it's such a sight to see. I think it's the second replica, the second biggest Stonehenge in America. So it's a replica of the original Stonehenge. So it's going to be epic. You'll enjoy it. It's just a few minutes away from the event. You don't want to miss it, folks. So those limitations on those VIP tickets, the venue is limited amount of space for tickets being sold. But next time, yes, there's a next time, folks. That's right. We are already planning a future conference beyond this one. It's going to be epic, even bigger than this one. But this one's going to be epic too in August. But if you don't catch this in August, you can we'll be probably announcing that here not too long after August, the next Spiracy Con. We got a lot of things planned here, so be on the lookout for that. So yeah, the Spiracy Con on the 22nd, we're going to have all kinds of different things. UFO guys, Bigfoot researchers, all that good stuff. Dogmen, we're just going for it, folks. There's so much to unravel. We're going to have a bunch of just exciting guests. And speaking of the guests, you'll get to see the guest early access passes. There's unlimited on the early access. Okay, so let me disclose this too. So early access, they'll be on the website. You can see on SpiracyCon website, you'll see the 10% off if you get you sign up to the newsletter, and you'll get those tickets. You'll be the first ones to receive those tickets. First come, first serve, but we hope you all sign up as quick as possible so you can get those perks and everything, and especially seeing the guests face to face, getting to see. We're going to have a stack full of guests that's coming on in the not just me and David and John, but a ton of other people. And just stay tuned for that on the special events. We're going to have different updates and everything. And how you can do that, you can go to our Facebook page on SpiracyCon. We have a SpiracyCon. Brother John has that in the description below, the SpiracyCon website, plus the SpiracyCon Facebook page. So check that out if you get an opportunity. It's well worth the check out. So hit that like it for us. Follow us on SpiracyCon. Help to get everything out. We're going to be updating periodically. Me and John are. So we're really super excited about. Me and John's not been this excited for a long time. So we're super stoked about this conference, and I hope you all will join us for the conference in Cave City, Kentucky. You won't want to miss it. So with that being said, I think I have one more thing that I forgot to pull in. So the Watchman Rewards. So the Watchman Awards, if you don't know what the Watchman Awards, Brother John came up with this idea, and I think it's an immaculate idea. It's just exciting. So SpiracyCon's going to be the 22nd. The whole event's going to be on a Friday and Saturday. The Watchman Awards, guess what? So we're gonna nominate. Well, not me and John, you all are. So we have a Watchman Awards website. It's not completely finished just yet, but here soon it's going to be completed, and we'll disclose that on the SpiracyCon Watchman Awards. So we're going to have a pure categories, right? UFO researchers, or like somebody, we wanted to look at different things like how, like somebody smaller, like a smaller podcast, and we're going to announce them, and that's serving God, right? And we're going to do Watchman Awards and give these really cool awards out for the Watchman Awards. So that's on the 23rd. I hope y'all enjoy it. I hope y'all can come. If you can't make it to the 22nd, come on the 23rd. We would really love to have you all. And don't forget, sign up for those tickets, because it's going to go really quick. And you can sign up for the newsletter. You can find them on SpiracyCon.com. So with that being said, David Carrico's got a huge presentation tonight. We got the cattle mutilations going on. And man, what a treat you're going to have tonight, because cattle mutilations is something that's been going on since the 1800s. So let's get into it, David. Let's ride this thing out. Substitute John Pounders. Let's ride this thing out, brother David.
And before we get going, we will give you a little announcement on FOJC Radio Sunday Night Live for tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, the Great Pyramid, the final secret. Many of you are aware of the tremendous findings that are being made there at the Great Pyramid. So we're going to be taking a Sunday Night Live dive into the Great Pyramid, the final secret. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central, on the FOJC Radio Underground Church channel. And with that, it's time to ride. And we're going to really be looking at these cattle mutilations from a lot of interesting angles. And as I said before, this is going to dovetail and coordinate with many other areas of study. And we're going to begin here. This here is a picture of King James, who was the King of England during the King James translation in the 1600s. And during his reign, there's a very interesting thing from minutes from his court, of the court of King James. And this wasn't written by him, but this is like a chronology of the interesting events there that happened during his reign. And it says here, the 10th of February, 1606, the minds of men are much troubled with the strange accident lately fallen out, by which no means can be discovered. About the city of London and some of the shires adjoining, whole slaughters of sheep have been made in some places to number 100, in others less, where nothing is taken from the sheep but their tallow and some inward parts, the whole carcasses and fleece remaining still behind. Of this sundry conjectures, but most agree that it tendeth toward some fireworks. Well, certainly this is extremely interesting, and you can find even references to cattle mutilations and other animal mutilations. You know, we're going to focus mainly on the cattle tonight, but we're going to be seeing that it's happened to sheep, to horses, even cats and dogs. This has been something that is really very profound, and there's so much documentation and evidence about this that it's just another instance of something that has really been kept in the shadows and just relegated to some kind of a conspiracy craziness. But this is very mindful of what it says in the Bible in Job chapter 1 and verse 16. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the fire of God is fallen from heaven and hath burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. And here we see the close correlation between the work of the fallen ones and this attack upon the animals. Now, I'm going to put forth here a couple of fellows that have some theories about what's behind these animal mutilations, and then I want Brian to come in and share his ideas. And this first fella here is Mr. Bill Cooper, who we have talked about on multiple instances here in the Midnight Ride. If you talk about conspiracies, you'll have to get Mr. Cooper in there quite a bit. And Mr. Cooper claimed that there was a secret government that controlled the country, and that this shadow government had signed a treaty with, as he understood them, the aliens, as we would understand them on the Midnight Ride, the Nephilim. And he said that there was a treaty that allowed them to abduct humans and mutilate animals to collect genetic material. And he said in exchange for that, we were given this alien tech. Now, there's another fellow here. This is Mr. John Lear, and Mr. Lear claimed that the aliens were using genetic material that was harvested from these cattle to create what he calls almost human beings. Now, Brian, what do you think of these two gentlemen? Are they just is this just totally crazy time, or is there a basis of fact that we can lay beyond at the base of these gentlemen's conjectures?
Well, both these gentlemen, 10 years ago, David, I would have said these guys are not credible. I'd be like, these guys are out of their mind. But as the information comes out in the last 2 years, Brother David, what they're saying and what they're coming up with and all this stuff that they have documented, one would have to question and look at the reality of it. So you have to think about the 1950s. The 1950s, I think there's all kinds of speculation online, the internet of things, where they said that there's these laboratories underground, these secret space black ops projects, where they have cow-like men, monkey-like men, snake and like Ninja Turtles, right? Mr. What's his name? Master Splinter, right? Rat people, etc. That's a thing. I think they call it Area 52. And so if these things are living under the ground amongst us, David, the question is, how did they pull it off? You mentioned the word Nephilim, the fallen angels, the sons of God, made with the daughters of men. I would have to say that Mount Hermon, the watchers, the 200 watchers, I'd say they taught humanity a thing or two about how to manipulate the genome of mankind, right? And a lot of other different tricks they had up their sleeve when they came and made that great oath there at Mount Hermon. So when you think about this and you really collab it all together, David, I really do think that this stuff is underneath us, because if you go back and look, just not 6 months ago, 8 months ago, I think Harvard even had like an article saying that there's they was doing on these interdimensional concepts, thinking about there was ancient civilization that lives among us, where there's people are actually living, and this stuff coming out with the pyramids of Giza, these tubes that's underneath the pyramid, and all these underground facilities, these underground bases. One would have to understand and articulate with the UFO phenomenon. People are wanting that. People are wanting they're craving it. They want information about it. But the Bible's been speaking about it for thousands and thousands of years. And then we have the sons of God made with the daughters of men. And Brother David, I will just say this. I think that is Nephilim. I think it's fallen angels, but I think there's a human stance to it too. When it comes to biologicals, the UFO phenomenon. And I really do think that all of it's collaborating. And I think this is the year for this so-called great reveal, 2025. And I think what we're seeing in the news and everything, they're cultivating the mind and planting these seeds in the mind to get people ready for this deception. But all along, they've been living under the earth, because you see all these signs about inner earth, Argotha, etc. But when you think about this, it really is coming to life now. And I think these gentlemen here really was onto something all those years ago, the 1970s, Bill Cooper here and John Lear. You have these individuals speaking upon this and putting their lives. They wouldn't just make this stuff up. They're not just making it out of just thin air. And with all the information coming out, David, I think they're very credible.
And I agree. There are the three basic theories of who's doing this. Linda Moulton Howe, who's very articulate in expounding the alien theory. She believes that aliens are behind it. There are people that believe the government is behind it. We're going to hear from some of them this evening. And there are people that believe that satanic cults are behind it. Now, I believe that there is definitely a connection with satanic cults, but I believe those satanic cults are within the U.S. government, as we've seen a lot of that with Mr. Michael Aquino being very, very involved in the Pentagon, Mr. Satanist himself. Now, we're going to find that what really kicked off the cattle mutilations, putting it in the public purview, it wasn't a cow, but it was a horse. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Snippy the Horse episode. And this took place in 1967 in Colorado, and this just was absolute hysteria out in Colorado during this time. And it got some national publicity, but they really do a good job keeping a lid on these type of things. And when they were mentioned in the mainstream media, it was just some kind of a jokey, quirky, make a joke out of it type thing. But here's one article, and Snippy the horse, I mean, my goodness, poor Snippy. She was totally skinned. Now, you just ask yourself, how hard would it be to totally skin a horse? That'd be some work right there. But just a horrible way that this poor horse was mutilated. But here's one article we'll read a little from. Flying saucer sought in the death of a horse, from Alamosa, Colorado. This was October 5th, 1967. It says authorities and residents near here are trying to find out who or what killed Snippy, and there is a growing body of opinion that the culprits were traveling in a flying saucer. Snippy was a 3-year-old Appaloosa whose carcass was found September 9th with the flesh from his neck and head neatly stripped away. 2 weeks after the animal was found, Dwayne Martin, a forestry aide with the U.S. Forestry Service, who is qualified in radiological monitoring, brought a radiation measuring device to the scene and got a high reading in a couple of spots near where the horse were killed. Readings were registered on black spots on the ground nearby on the boots of Mr. Burl Lewis of Alamosa. And we'll read a little bit here from another article. This was another one. And did a horse and a saucer tangle? This is again from Alamosa, Colorado. Snippy, a 3-year-old Appaloosa horse, didn't return to the Harry King Ranch for her usual evening drink September 7th. And her owner is blaming a flying saucer, or at least a radioactive surgeon. And it says there were no tracks near the dead horse, but the animal had been completely skinned. All that remained of the neck and shoulders were bleached bones, but they were still intact and attached to the rest of the body. The cut around the neck was smooth, not a jagged edge, nor blood remained in the horse's, no blood remained in the horse's body, and there was none on the ground. Can you imagine to totally skin a horse, strip the flesh off, no blood in the horse, no blood on the ground? This is just absolutely phenomenal. And this kicked off the cattle mutilation, and this began with the horse mutilation coming into purview in the public arena. And I mean, people out here, this was a huge deal. They were seeing UFOs every day, every night. It was just absolute pandemonium. And it is just really something to think about. Now, we've got another article here, but Brian, what do you think? Can you imagine, when people wonder about, is something like this even credible? And we have an entire area here that was just thrown into pandemonium, and this has happened in repeated places. There was an incident in Missouri where these things happened so frequently that the local people were just really in a stir. But what do you think about these articles, Brian, and the way that the media deals with these cattle mutilations?
Well, these articles are a long time. They've been out for a long time. You go back and look at what they do now, gaslighting the media, gaslights everything, when it talks about, flying saucers, orbs, UFOs, drones, whatever. This is interesting to me. So here's my take on it. I'm thinking gamma radiation. I'm thinking to pull off this endeavor to skin the horse and to extract the blood. You got something there. The horse has to stay still. It's either, it's almost like that it's, kind of got like a proton ray coming down or something where it puts them in like some kind of a stasis, which I know you're going to be talking about that here later, and they're just stuck there. But then to think about the skin being ripped off and just, scalped pretty much and the blood extracted, it reminds me of a story, David. There was an individual not too long ago, I think it was 2018, there was a man that had his neck severed. He went missing. His father went to go look for him and had his neck severed, laser precision, and he was just found in his car without his skull. So it's almost the same scenario comparison, like having these from the first article, and you have these anomalies like this going on. And David, I think it's been going on a lot longer than just this article. I think it precedes this, but David, I think it's gamma radiation and some type of high advanced technology when you get into 0-point energy or interdimensional travel. I think this horse and these UFO concept is what we're referring to today, but it's just packaged different now here in 2025.
Yeah, there are multiple instances where radiation was found near the site and on the animals, and the incisions made are of such precision it would have to be something of a quality of some kind of a laser instrument that's making this happen. Now, we have here an amazing coincidence here, and I don't believe in coincidence, but this is Anton LaVey of the Church of Satan, and it's very interesting that in 1967, Anton LaVey proclaimed the beginning of the Age of Satan, and this also kicked off in big-time fashion the mass of cattle mutilations, and I guess we could even say animal mutilations, that begin to take place not only in America, and we could take this to Australia and all over the world. We have reports of this. It was a worldwide phenomenon. Now get your sniffers ready. We're gonna put this to the sniff test. So get your Midnight Ride sniffers loaded up. Now this fella here is Harrison Hagen Jack Schmidt. He was on the last Apollo moon mission. He was supposedly the last man that has walked upon the moon. He went on to be a senator from the state of Nevada. And Mr. Harrison Schmidt supposedly took the photo of the famous blue marble. Yes, that's right. Mr. Jack Schmidt took the blue marble photo. There it is. Now, since that time, we have learned that the the blue marble is a CGI. It's a computer-generated image. Now, why Mr. Harrison Schmidt makes the broadcast tonight on the subject of cattle mutilations, guess who headed up the investigations in the 70s here in Nevada into cattle mutilations? Yes, call forth Mr. Harrison Schmidt. And at this time, my sniffer just goes wild, and I see here big-time cover-up, big-time shenanigans going on. But does anything there sound fishy to you, Brian, that we've got this astronaut that walked on the moon that took the photo of the blue marble? This man's going to get us the truth about cattle mutilations.
Yeah, it stinks to high heaven, David, when you think about this and you look at this individual, just to have that clearance and everything and have to be an astronaut. It seems to me, we've talked about this on many programs, they have a lot of pull. They can change the dynamic of society, right? Culture impacts, right? And it's just I'm wondering if, we look at MK Ultra and everything like that, but then you think about this, did he know and why is he investigating cattle mutilations? And here's my take. So he has some preconceived knowledge. He goes out and is a little soldier, so to speak, on the foots on the ground and looking and evaluating and investigating these cattle mutilations, because let's just face it, he probably knew that was going to happen, preconceived knowledge that there was going to be a cattle mutilation. He right to the place to where the cow was there. So he had preconceived knowledge of it. So I wonder, there's a lot of nefarious things here, Brother David.
And I guarantee you, and this absolutely seals the deal for me, that the government was definitely involved in this big time. And they were also up to their neck involved in making sure that we get the wrong perception about what's going on with it. Now, we have here a photo, and this is from Linda Moulton Howe's book, Alien Harvest. And this was another repeated thing that was seen with cattle mutilations. It happened repeatedly over several states and was photographed in several states. And it was called Big Mama and Baby UFO. And here's one of the many pictures that was taken of Big Mama and Baby UFO. And just hundreds of people. People would be looking for this every night. And it would be, we've heard this story before. We even heard it from the people that were the whistleblowers that testified in the Pentagon, that there was a larger craft and it would dispense like a little drone. And over, Big Mama would show up and kick out Baby UFO, and then the cattle would start being mutilated. And this was observed on a nightly basis. Now, this picture here was taken in Sterling, Colorado, and this picture here that's up here now, this is also from Linda Moulton Howe's book, and this compares the one photo, the first one on the left, which we saw previously. This was from Logan County, Colorado, and the other one is from Ashdown, Arkansas. So, this is an observable phenomenon that was seen by so many people. And a very interesting article here at the time, this was from the Colorado Springs newspaper, April 24th, 1977. And the article says, a baby UFO and its Big Mama, a soundless, elusive flying object, had become the focal points in Logan County for a devoted audience of nighttime viewers. Those monitoring the strange objects since their appearance in northeast Colorado in late November include the Logan County Sheriff's Department, which views them as a new dimension of investigation into cattle mutilations. The unexplainable deaths and confirmed mutilations of 72 cattle in the county since August prompted Sheriff Harry Tex Graves to pursue every possible lead that they may result in uncovering those responsible for the senseless slaughter. 72 instances where Big Mama put down Baby UFO, and this sheriff was so zealous. And of course, my goodness, you're having 72 instances of cattle mutilations. You can't stop it. You see this thing happening every night. And this sheriff even had airplanes. They would take airplanes up and try to get close to Big Mama, and they could never get any closer than about 5 miles from Big Mama. Now, we're going to play here. Brian, is there any thoughts you have here? We've seen this scenario before. We have seen the reports of what they would call a mothership dispensing other littler UFOs. And does this sound like something that we've heard before?
Well, it goes back to 1800s. There's cattle mutilations being reported everywhere, but there's always lights in the sky. And I really do truly think that's exactly the same narrative than today. And then you think about, with all these orbs and drones, et cetera, going on, it really makes you wonder what really is going on in this world. And David, it's very compelling, man. When you think about Big Mama and that deploying the small little recon craft, it reminds me of what they just talked about in Rand off the shore, talking about the mothership, right? You remember we done shows on that where mothership is in the Akashic records with old what's his name? My memory's not right there on that, but anyways, we had Casey, Mr. Casey talked about it in Kentucky. So you look at that, and the mothership says, I think you say the Akashic records, and it means mothership. So isn't that interesting? Is there some kind of weird phenomenon going on where it's all connected, interconnected some way, in some combination of randomness? And I think it's all fallen angel technology. I really do. I think, bovine connection, the human connection, and then all the abductions and everything, I think it's one and the same. And I think they have breakaway technology, some type of advanced technology where they can sense where the blood is, like literally on the ground, and just swoop in, pop out of a portal, voila, there you go. Get you a cow, abduction, a human. It's crazy, David. I think anything goes anymore, but this goes back to the ancient days and the fallen angels. People knew this was a thing, and now we're just kind of catching up and kind of getting our wheels turning when we talk about biblical narrative and you see our reality. It's all coming to a fruition.
Amen. Now, there is, we're going to make mention here of a YouTube video. We can't play the video because of copyright, so we'll just talk to you about this. It was one of the Ancient Alien series. It was about the Serapeum in Egypt, and this was the center of the worship of the Apis bull. And here's another very fascinating aspect to the whole topic of cattle mutilations, is the way that cattle have been worshipped. The Apis bull and the worship here we're going to be talking about in Egypt, and we have the Mithra, who was worshipped as a bull. In India, even to this day, the cows are worshipped as sacred. We have the origin of that, which was in the movement of Venus, when it was traced on a star chart, it would actually make the shape of horns. And this is why we have the horns on the Viking. This is why the devil had horns attributed to him. It all comes back to the planet Venus, which we know from Isaiah 14:12. This was associated with Lucifer. Now, in this video, and from the Ancient Alien series, they were talking about the ancient alien coffins, and there were these huge coffins at the Serapeum in a big underground, vast underground facility, and these huge coffins there, and they had like 30-ton lids upon them, and they were talking about what was found in some of these coffins, and there were crushed up animal bones of multiple different kinds of animals, the Apis bull plus other animals in there. And the conclusion that was come to, and the theory was put forth in this video, that maybe whoever crushed these animal bones up and put them in there, they were wanting to make sure that these animals did not come back, and that perhaps this was done because there were creatures there that they greatly feared. And we've talked so many times about it began in the book of Jasher, where the book of Jasher claims that the humans were taught how to manipulate the animal genome through from the fallen ones. We see in the architecture and the literature and the remains of all the ancient nations, we see the animal-human hybrids in all of these cultures. And I have to say, and Brian, I want your opinion here. Do you think that, I think this is very plausible that perhaps what they put in these coffins, I mean, you crush the bones up and you put them in a coffin, then we're going to put a 30-ton lid on top of it. It is quite possible that they might have done that to hopefully reinsure that whatever they put in there wouldn't be coming back.
Yeah, the first thing that I think of, bro, David, is rejuvenation. Right? We've done many programs with Nephilim where they rejuvenate. And, you got to think with that huge slab on top of them, plus all the bones, and just, was they worshiping the bones? Was they worshiping the entity? They call it the 18, 20 foot, whatever it is, 10-footer size coffin. was it worship or was it something else? And it's all speculation on my part, David. Just listen to you talk about the bones being scattered across. I wonder if it was something on the spiritual side, or just maybe out of a hunch that it was just something they did as a ritual, the burial ground. But here's my take on it. Could it be that they wanted that to preserve too? Could that be? That's just one take on it. Could there be or could it be that they cursed it, so to speak, and the individual, they didn't want it to be resurrected, like we just alluded to with the rejuvenation, and then you throw a big old concrete, slab on top of it. This thing must have been large, and they knew the massive strength that this individual could do, right? And then that's just my take on a speculation part of it, David. What's your thoughts on that? Wonder if they had the bones all broken up, all across all the whole body, the corpse, and wonder if it was something that they didn't want it to either come out, or maybe something to find it. That's another thing. Did they want it to be secluded so nobody can find it, or these angels with these ancient technology to find these sarcophaguses, these coffins? That's it's just a take, and it's just a speculation. What's your thoughts on that, David?
Well, their conjecture that they didn't want it to come back, or your idea, maybe they wanted it to come back. There's now the DNA ability, and there was actually a case here in Indiana where there was a mass murder where the bones were crushed up and they were grinded to a very minute size. And just from a very minute fragment of a bone, you can make a DNA identification of the body. So it's possible. We don't know all what was behind it. We can only conjecture. Either one of those theories is plausible. But what we do know, it's there. And it's very compelling that this is here in the Egyptian Serapeum, where it was the center of the worship of the Apis bull. And the worship of the bull, it goes in Egypt. They worshipped Hathor, and this was the basis of the golden calf story that we have in our Bible. And it's just a lot of strange things when we think about the relationship that human beings have had with bulls. Now,
may I interject?
Yes, you sure can.
Forgive me, David. I just want to interject here. So a lot of people might know about this with the dental industry. There's certain things. They used to use bovine. They use different things now with dental procedures. And they used to use bovine because bovine was close to our, signature, our DNA signature, and certain things, because they have certain things in their blood that we have, that we carry. And they use those to do, like with bone loss, they would use bovine to rejuvenate our bones. So isn't that interesting, David? Isn't that a twist to everything, what you're presenting tonight with the cows and everything, and the mingling and the UFO stuff with the mingling, and they making these hybrid Nephilim? What's your take, David? Isn't that insane? And we're in the same world right now, aren't we?
Yeah, it really is. And over again, when we look into the subject, we come into this genetic material, how it plays in. And I have to believe that this is really at the basis of it. And this is a photo of a gentleman by the name of Gabe Valdez. And for many years, Mr. Valdez was a member of the Nevada State Police. And he was stationed in the Dulce, New Mexico area. And he investigated many, many, many cattle mutilations in the Dulce, New Mexico area. And the conclusion that Mr. Valdez came to was, he said, this is not aliens, this is humans. And Mr. Valdez found traces of thorazine in many of these cattle, where thorazine was used to drug the cattle so that they could do what they did to them, radiation, thorazine. And he believed that this was carried on in this area because of what took place in the early 60s in New Mexico. It was called Operation Gas Buggy. And this was underground nuclear testing. And he believed that they were trying to see what the effects were of this underground nuclear test on the cattle, plus other nefarious agendas there. But we're going to play a little YouTube video here for you about what went on this Dulce area here. And Dulce is in New Mexico. I think I said Nevada, but here in Dulce, New Mexico. And it's a very, very, one of the absolute hot spots for UFO cattle mutilations. But we're going to play a little video here for you about what the locals say goes on here in this Dulce, New Mexico area.
Dulce is a quiet, unassuming town nestled in northern New Mexico. Many of its residents are members of the Jicarilla Apache tribe. They swear.
I tell stories, but my nose isn't growing.
They are not making this up.
They threw down a ladder from that spaceship, and then two small people started climbing down.
Jerry Julian says she had her first extraterrestrial encounter right here on her Dulce ranch about 40 years ago.
It was huge. I just saw the bottom of it. You know, it was like flat like this.
Many of her neighbors claim similar strange sightings.
Fat in the middle and kind of like rounded on the sides. You're speechless, you know? You just don't know what to think, you know? It's just like, it's like nothing you've ever encountered before.
Why are stories of the extraordinary ordinary here?
I do not know. I do not know. Probably kind of that big mountain we have right there, you know.
Rumor has it there is a secret base hidden underneath the Archuleta Mesa here. The mountain overlooks Dulce. Some people in town say the base is run by aliens working with our federal government to conduct mind control and genetic experiments. Do you believe that?
Yeah. Well, a whole bunch of people seen it, you know.
Like the ground opened up, steam coming out of it.
They also claim they've seen some creatures cooked up in those experiments, like Bigfoot and something half human.
Down this way, the waist down, it's a goat. It has a tail. But up here, it's a man.
People tell me Dulce wasn't always a center for supernatural activity, but then sometime in the 70s, things changed. That's when cows started turning up mutilated.
They just cut out in between the legs right here. We seen one.
I know it's not a predator, it's doing it. There's someone's doing it.
Local police never definitively said who's to blame. Locals say it has to be something out of this world. And since then,
I was taking a random picture, zoomed it in, and there was a UFO right there.
they say they know it sounds crazy.
They're just going to ask me, well, how much did you drink or what did you drink?
I'll submit to a lie detector test or anything, you know.
But say it's the truth. Question is, do you believe?
Anything possible these days now.
In Dulce, Megan Cruz, KOAT Action 7 News.
In the Dulce area, it would be harder to find someone that hasn't seen a UFO than it would be to find someone that has. This is so common in this area and in other parts of our nation and other places around the world that it is just really stunning. And here's another aspect that's been brought in with the that YouTube video there, that accompanying these cattle mutilations are crypto creatures. And, you know, Bigfoot and others are seen there. So we've got cattle mutilations, we've got UFOs, we've got crypto creatures. These are seen by all kinds of people. And here we see an unmistakable trail leading back to the government being involved over and over. But yet at the same time, there's something supernatural here, because the things that are done here are so phenomenal that the known abilities that we have couldn't pull it off in the way this is being pulled off. So the conclusion that I'm driven to is we definitely have a government plus supernatural collaboration, which would be the Nephilim. Now, this is a fellow here that in the Dulce area here, Mr. Phil Schneider, he made the claim as he was working in an underground facility in Dulce that he actually encountered these Nephilim creatures that he called aliens, and he was actually in a firefight with them. And he actually had a couple fingers blowed off, and here Mr. Schneider is showing some of his the scars and the wounds that he received. There were several other soldiers that were killed during this encounter. Mr. Schneider claimed that he had a direct firefight with these alien creatures, that it was underground here in the Dulce area. Mr. Schneider died very, very badly, and I admire him for his courage. But what do we have here, Brian, that is taking place in Dulce? What are your thoughts here as you listen to these people talk about the things that they see on a regular basis?
Well, David, I have to give you my personal testimony on this. I mean, these bases, they're all over the world, but there's a place in Kentucky that nobody would even think about. You got your Fort Knox, it's a big thing going on the news right now, all the gold and everything. But in my neck of the woods, there's a place, no joke, it's an army place. I'm going to watch what I say here. They supposedly have canisters of something that goes back to World War II, and they're, let's just say, gas, a chemical. But here's the interesting part, David. We're talking about cattle mutilations. We're talking about cows. Did you know, David, that facility, this army, depot, has cows on their land? Well, did you know they have tags on their ears that have sensors, and if they drop, there's supposedly a gas leak? Well, there's been many, many, many stories in the so-called folklore, and this place has been in activation since the 40s and 50s. And when you have cows that are falling over and stacking up in piles, and that has been accounted for the locals here, and they have these drills they do periodically, there's a gas leak. Well, here's the interesting take on this depot. And this is an interesting conversation piece right here for this conversation with cattle mutilations and UFOs and the Phil Schneider narrative. Well, David, did you know that there's a supposedly harboring a UFO, and they said the Kentuckians was so, let's just say, ignorant to things that they would be easier to deceive the populace with bringing the UFO in and putting in that depot? Well, that's been there since the Gulf War, according to the account. And riddle that one, David. And here's another one just to top the icing of the cake here, put the candle and watch it fall off into oblivion. Well, just recently in March, I think it was March the 11th, if I'm not mistaken, March the 10th through the 14th, 10 days ago, they did a drone drill. The exact same scenario. All the years that I've been living in existence, this place did a drone drill. Well, if you go back and look at the New Jersey narrative with all the UFOs and the drones and orbs, etc., they did a drone drill too, but that drone drill went on for a long time. But I remember previously before that, they did a drone drill. And then like a couple months later, they had these anomalies in the sky and people in pandemonium and panic throughout the so-called cities, and especially those poor folk in New Jersey. Well, one would have to wonder with this whole Phil Snyder narrative and all these other accounts, are we looking at something here? Because we always got a cow narrative. We have always got an elk. We always got deer involved. And they even throw some turkeys in there when it comes to the depot over here. But do we have something here with the blood, let's just say residents, and you can see it from high advanced technology, and it might not be so-called gas, but there might be some interdimensional beings or Nephilim or craft from above, which I have recorded with my own camera. I wonder what's going on in the skies, David. I wonder what they're harboring over there, and I wonder if it's not speculation. I wonder if it's fact, and it's just hard to dig and find the information. But they're literally freely putting this information out, and it sounds just like what you're bringing up with the Phil Snyder narrative. All of it's connecting, David.
Maybe the cows there are like the canary in the coal mine. But Brian, why don't you share with the folks some pictures that you took over there in your area of some cattle that fell into mischief?
Sure. So this has been going on for about almost a year. Okay. This is not too far from my family residence when I went to go visit them. Right. So one day called the family member up and they told me the story about these cows, and these cows kept being put out on the side of the street right down the gravel road of this farm. Well, the farmer is supposedly, in dismay. He doesn't know what's going on. He has no correlation in what's happening. He usually has healthy cows. They don't know. They was trying to find people to test the soil and see if there's any issues there or whatnot. All these, like for a whole year, cows will be drugged to the end of the driveway. They'll look swelled up. But guess what? I literally got a chance to drive by. My son dropped me off, and we sat there and took pictures for a few moments. And this specimen that you see on the screen here, as you can see, this cow is swelled up. But here's the narrative. Here's what's going on. Here's what we have the information on this. This cow has been sitting at the end of this driveway at this farm about a week when I came upon it. Well, in that area, it's dominantly coyote country. Okay, coyotes are everywhere. There's no way that they let Miss Betsy here go, not to be a Golden Corral buffet. Okay. So this cow is literally just swelled up. Now I walked up on it. You could barely smell any hint of a smell. It's like 70 degrees outside. You look at the size of, she's a really large cow. Her eyes had this crystal-like substance around it. I mean, she's been sitting there for over a week because I verified this with one of my other family members. Well, this has happened since then, and it's still happened to this day. They're doing it all the time. So this particular cow here that we're looking at has been sitting there for a whole week, and there's no cuts, there's no tears, there's no laser precision or anything like that. But I want to think about it. Does this cow? Here's the narrative. The farmer said the cows do not go to the same location that this cow died at. Check that off the mark. That's just exactly like they have in Skinwalker Ranch. Same exact narrative, same exact, just everything. It's check the marks off. Check the check marks off the list here. So you have a cow that died, and then you have these other cows that no longer go in that same location. They keep dragging them periodically. You're going to run out of land, right? Because you're going to run out of cattle. But here's the interesting thing: they're still going. See, they keep buying more cattle. So there's a question here. Why would you keep investing in your investment, but you keep losing cattle periodically, like every other couple of weeks for a whole year? It's insanity to me. So when you're looking at it here, I'm thinking stress pneumonia. If you go back and look at all these UFO researchers, Skinwalker Ranch, I think there was a vet that checked it out and said this cow's got stress pneumonia. This cow there's nothing missing. But the interesting thing is, at the Skinwalker Ranch, there was no coyotes or nothing that would touch them cattle either, guys. So do we have a cattle mutilation, something going down here? And this location here is not too far from that Army facility that I mentioned. It's not that far, okay? Because it's a very dominant, pretty good sized, massive part of this county. So it's dead center of the county, and all the surroundings of this farm, it's not too far from there. So do we have some kind of weird radiation thing going on, or do we have some things where we're referring to tonight, cattle mutilation that went bad, or do we have some UFO activity? And I think it's a little bit of both, because why are they monitoring the skies with this drone test? I have no clue. Everybody's left in the dark. We only get fed little crumbs, but maybe it's all correlated together. And I mean, it's pretty profound to me and compelling that this keeps happening with this same farm. Same cows get drug out, and then you have to have the cleanup crew and come and get it, David. So we have something so bizarre here. What is your thoughts on it? Because I see a maybe almost a cattle mutilation, or maybe something here that has caused these cows for their hearts to stop or whatever. What's your thoughts?
Well, there's an unmistakable connection with these bizarre events and military bases. It's undeniable. And another one of the commonalities, like you mentioned, when these animals die in these weird scenarios, animals of prey don't want anything to do with it. And this is just absolutely abnormal. Whether it's birds of prey, around here, when an animal dies, you can see the birds circling overhead. You could find the animal from the birds. But none of that is going on. That just goes to show us that there's something going on there. And these strange animal events, some are outright mutilations, and even other bizarre deaths like this. It's just an unmistakable pattern of these strange animal events taking place in these military base areas. And there's yet another very interesting connection between cattle mutilations. Many people are familiar, and I know Brian's very familiar with the work of David Pilates, Missing 411, and he talks about individuals that have gone missing from government property in national parks and other things, just all kinds of strange disappearances. And in his book, he lists, and he goes so far, he gives the names and the dates they disappeared. And one of the hotbeds of this is a place in New Mexico, right in the heart of the cattle mutilation phenomena. It's called the Pecos Wilderness Forest Service, and this is the trails for the Pecos Wilderness. This is a huge area that is about 250,000 acres, and the trails begin as close as 15 miles from the state capital there of Santa Fe. So we have yet another We have these cattle mutilations coinciding with the UFO sightings. We've got the crypto creatures. We've got now missing people that disappear in bizarre fashion. And Brian, I want you to talk about, I know that Mr. Pilates, he has coordinated these disappearances of humans on government property with all of the above, with the UFOs, the Bigfoots, the cattle mutilations. All of these things are connected. And once again, we have the definite connection to these military facilities, government property, and at the same time, there's an element here that is in the realm of the supernatural, that things are happening that cannot be explained with the capacities that we have to do things. Even if it was the military, of what we know they have, they couldn't do what we're seeing happen here.
I agree 100%, David. And, speaking of David here, we, the first thought to me, David, is these nuclear facilities, these nuclear facilities and all these places these hunters go that David Pilates has been, he's a huge researcher and he's very good at what he does. Okay. So when he's looked these things up and done deep dives and research, I mean, he literally researches these people's lives out to the T, like from A to Z. And these individuals, what was so interesting, David, they had these similarities, right? Some of them would be younger, older, but the one thing that stuck out the most was their blood. Well, guess what? They had literally blood of Germans, German bloodline. So isn't that an interesting connection, And they would talk about these triangle crafts that would come in and abduct them, right? So here's that, once again, that connection. Is it a blood residence, like the resonating of the blood signature, and they're able just to come in, swoop in interdimensionally, and boom, they extract the individual? Well, there's other really interesting things that David has brought to the table too. You think about, there was one individual, I can't remember what state it was in, but it looked like his bag would be over here. He had a gun, a cup or survivor gear, and it would be sprout out up all over this from the base to this high mountain. And, it looked like almost like he had a struggle, but the timing would be off, right? The way that to climb it up, it wouldn't have enough equivalent amount of time, and everybody was keeping tabs on this. And you look at it, and they did an investigation out, and they even sent like in one account that he was researching, they sent out an account, like a huge, like a military Marine force, like some kind of Delta Force team, just to search this area out, because see, here we go again. They must have had preconceived knowledge that something was going bump in the night and have signatures, like looking at the radar detection and seeing stuff pop in and out. That's my take. Well, this goes on when you see these things, like there's inconsistencies with the trail. You got your bag, you got your cup, I think these individuals are struggling with something, because I've listened to him on Coast to Coast when he talks about there's like technology out there where you're in the woods and you walk up and you can grab somebody, and that there's something about this technology, whatever it is, the person standing beside you could not hear, could not see, could not smell, nothing. And you would just vanish. And they go behind some type of veil. There's like some kind of weird concept that goes along with that. But David, I think these people struggle. I think there's a DNA connection. I think there's an ancestral connection. Absolutely. And I think it was so interesting with the German connection. I know you got a lot to say about that, but the German connection got me. David.
Yeah, and this just, of course, the German, they're at the basis of NASA, and so much of our elite military facilities and research is based upon the German scientists that we brought over in Paperclip. And it is just another one of these things that cannot be explained. I think the absolute best explanation is that we have the fallen ones working in conjunction with the American military pulling a lot of this stuff off. This is just the conclusion that I'm driven to. And it's just another fascinating aspect, the connection of these things with missing human beings off of government property. Now, another thing that is very disturbing, if you think about it, is the connection of cattle mutilations, not only with military bases, but with the elite nuclear facilities of the American military. It coincides with all of the above. We've got crypto creatures, we've got UFO sightings, we've got cattle mutilations repeatedly occurring around our elite nuclear facilities. Now, this is one of the hotbeds of the cattle mutilations is Kirtland Air Force Base. And this is located in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And Kirtland Air Force Base is the home of our 377th Air Base Wing. And at Kirtland Air Force Base here, there is they admit to having one of the largest underground facilities, over 300,000 square feet. And there at Kirtland, it is the largest storehouse on Earth of nuclear weapons. The bulk of our nuclear warheads are stored right here underground at Kirtland Air Force Base. And this is one of the pristine locations for all of these bizarre activities that we see. Another photo here, this is Nellis Air Force Base. This is near Las Vegas, Nevada. And we did a midnight ride not long ago where we talked about the tall whites. And Mr. Charles Hall, who did the documentary on the tall whites, he was stationed here at Nellis Air Force Base. Mr. White gave a testimony very similar to that which we hear from Mr. Cooper, that indeed there was tall whites, aliens here that would directly interact with the American military there, that he knew it, and there was also other people there at Nellis Air Force Base that used it, that knew it. And here again, we've got a strange direct connection with the cattle mutilations and these Air Force bases. And here is another one. This is Maelstrom Air Force Base in Montana, and this is the home of the 341st Missile Wing of the United States Air Force. It is also the home of the strangely prophetic 819th Red Horse Squadron. And there are, this is one of our pristine locations for our nuclear strike force. And there is so much of this that there's a fellow now that's written a book totally about. There's so many aspects to this, and all of these subjects dovetail in so many directions. And this fellow here, Robert Hastings, has written an entire book, and it's a big one, documenting the connections of these bizarre events and our American nuclear facilities, and not only the American nuclear facilities, but nuclear facilities in Russia and in Ukraine. And I'll give you an example here. And this is an excerpt here on page 446 from this book. And I'll just read it for you. It says, ABC News also aired this comment by reporter David Ensor. Every person we spoke to in Blavaroche said they saw a flying saucer on that day. They told us it was huge, about 900 feet in diameter. For hours, it hovered over a nearby ballistic missile base. This thing was huge, over 900 feet in diameter, and it hovered for hours over this nuclear military base in Ukraine, seen by hundreds or thousands of people. It goes on and it says, while the UFO lingered nearly stationary above the missile site, an unspecified number of the missiles suddenly activated. According to witnesses, as the horrified launch crew looked on helplessly, the automated launch sequence was enabled without proper authorization and without anyone in the capsule turning the launch keys. The countdown then proceeded for 15 terrifying seconds before aborting and returning the missile to standby status. Now, Brian, I know you've read this book. You recommended it to me. And this is just one of many, many. We could do an entire midnight ride just on this little corner of the rabbit hole. There is, and this is disturbing. This is disturbing when you have huge UFOs over nuclear facilities and the launch codes activate. What do we got going on here?
David, my first take is on this when I think about nukes and UFO connection. And I just want to bring back to everybody's remembrance, we spoke about it earlier with the New Jersey narrative with the drones in the sky. David, they said it on the administration that was in power at the time, said that they was looking for nuclear material, right? There was nuclear material. There was like this big thing about a shipping container, blah, blah, blah. But the thing was, what was really interesting to me is these drones had the capability supposedly to sniff out nuclear material in the dark. So I thought about it, and I've been kind of calibrating this in my mind and articulating and thinking, does the fallen angels, do they have a residence? Does anybody know? Comment below if you after this video, but do you have any information on if there's a nuclear connection with a nuclear signature? And then these nuclear sites where these UFOs come, and then they have nuclear material on board where it counteracts and it basically responds to what's on the ground. Then you could shut the nuclear codes off to the facilities. And then I thought, well, if the drones have the capability of looking the nukes, well, what was it? Was there things that was going on the face of the earth? I mean, literally, you can do this when you get into paranormal activity. Was it just one big test? Was it one big test that there was nuclear material? But what if it wasn't nuclear material? What if it was these things that go bump in the night and these Sasquatches, these crypto creatures, the Nephilim, the fallen angels? What if it's all connected? What if they had the technology? And here's the thing I'll just bring up, and I said this before. The sons of God made it with the daughters of men. They presented themselves as a light and strong, and probably had all kinds of information. No telling what they taught. The Book of Enoch talks about that. But it's interesting. You think in 2025, when you look at it, that they haven't mapped out the genome of humanity, they haven't been able to figure out. They're the ones that taught us how to do this technology. So they're going over the nuclear sites and pushing and pulling the plug, and they know the nuclear codes, and they can hack into everything. And I just want to bring everybody up to speed, because it looks like there's been a bunch of hacking going on in the last year or so, and just up into present time. And makes you wonder, is there a nuclear connection? More than likely. Is there a UFO connection? More than likely. And then our primitive, let's just say, infrastructure is not holding up. And even these old military bases are not holding up. And I think these, let's just say, fallen angels, Nephilim, are literally up to something to mess with the human mind and the psyche when it comes to these generals, et cetera. They're completely clueless, and they got their hands tied, and they don't know what to do, David. I mean, I think there is something here that can be documented. Absolutely. That's just my take. It's all speculation. It's just a hunch. But I think there's a nuclear connection, and they can understand that these fallen angels and these creatures and these advanced technology all has a residence. I've said it many times on this program tonight. I think it's all collaborating together, and we're getting to really understand that 2025 is revealing a lot of information.
Yeah, and I think we have to admit that this is some very intelligent speculation, because there is so much material from all of these different aspects, and the trail always leads back to the American military and the fallen ones. Now, here's another very interesting aspect of the cattle and the way it was regarded in antiquity, and this is what is called the aurochs, the auroch, and we see the auroch pictured here on the Ishtar Gate from Babylon, which has now been taken to a museum in Berlin. And it's just very fascinating. This was described by Julius Caesar in the Gallic Wars, that the aurochs was just a little smaller than an elephant. These things were big. They were huge. And they were known to continue to exist even up into the 1600s, and they're now considered to be extinct. But another just really bizarre thing when it comes to cattle and genetics, there is a serious effort to recreate the aurochs. It's literally a Jurassic Park come to life. Now, here's the way I think, and I think a little conspiratorial, of course, and how can you not? The Bible tells us that eating pork is an abomination, and we see that the price of beef is just going crazy high, and I think there could be actually a war on beef from a satanic perspective, and we see all of this, the creation of artificial meat. Now, you can look, there are numerous articles out there about the serious attempts that are underway to bring back this giant cattle, the auroch. Is it possible that we could have in store for us a genetically created animal that is so huge it's going to be a major source of the food supply? Now, this is just total speculation on my part, but from what I see happening, I think that that's a possibility. Is this something you think is just totally crazy, Brian? What do you think?
Well, I just want to bring this up real quick. I got to watch what we say because we're on this YouTube platform, respecting the channel. Hey, listen to this. So you remember in the last 5 years, you remember people going into grocery stores and throwing magnets on the so-called beef, and different other, meat department, whatever it was, steak, ribs, whatever. But I noticed it a lot on cows, like cow meat. They throw magnets on it. So what if, hypothetically, and then to answer your question, is there something here with the synthetic, a Nephilim? Is there something here? And then the war on beef, it literally costs a fortune, folks, to buy meat. Like consuming meat, strong protein for people to go, to be strong and healthy. And it's like, how can you afford these astronomical prices? I mean, seriously. So, David, with this type of beast and this creature, I couldn't imagine eating it because, first of all, it would be a Nephilim spliced and resurrected from the back in the day. You said 1600s. Could you imagine that being resurrected and brought back into the food supply? I think they've already done stuff to that level. I got to watch what I say, but there's a lot of weird stuff going on for sure. And I don't know, David, there's a lot of connections here with the cows, these ancient creatures. And what if all these things are going? I got to watch what I say. What if, David? And it's very, very interesting.
Well, just hang tight there, Brian. I want to run something else by you here. This is found in the Epic of Gilgamesh. And we've done a couple midnight rides just focusing on the Epic of Gilgamesh. But there's a very interesting episode in the Epic of Gilgamesh where Gilgamesh and Enki, they do battle with the bull from heaven. And this bull from heaven comes down to fight Gilgamesh and Enki, and they kill this bull from heaven. Now, this is just another one of these strange cattle connections we have with ancient mythology. And I know, and I believe, and I know on the Midnight Ride, we believe that these mythological tales, they have a basis in fact and reality. What could possibly be going on here that we have them battling a bull that comes down from heaven? And this could lead us to think that, when we talk about the cherubim that we see mentioned in Scripture, that there are actually fallen angels that are in the shape of these bulls and very similar, that this is possibly another reason for the worship of the bull that we see throughout so many cultures. But do you have any thoughts on this, Brian?
Well, I want to bring back on the Epic of Gilgamesh. So this has been in the news for a while here lately, and especially with a certain politician, one of the presidents of the United States, his lovely wife, Hillary. I'm joking, but Hillary was inquiring to, I think her name or last name was Denitra, or first name was Denitra, in inquiring about emails of where the Nephilim were buried, but then also where Gilgamesh was buried, David. So this all went down, I think it was 2020 or 2021 when that email dropped, just the title of it, but I thought it was interesting. The Nephilim, the epic, with Gilgamesh connection, you got the body of Gilgamesh. Well, here's what's so strange, David. Not too long ago, they said Saddam Hussein, I think it's when he had his museum, they found these tombs. They found all these ancient, literally 2,200 items of resurrection, death books, and all these different, witchcraft, sorcery, all the ball of wax for everything in this facility. 2,200. It was ancient artifacts. Well, then here's the kicker. They had the tablet. It was a dream tablet for Gilgamesh in that. So is there a connection there? Is there something there? And then the Afghanistan government was wanting it back. And it was so strange how it was auctioned off and everything from all this years of insanity where they auctioned all these pieces back, but they wanted all 2,200 pieces back not too long ago. And then here we are, UFO phenomenon. There's things coming out of the sky. I mean, is it a connection? Is it just a coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences, David. But this epic of Gilgamesh here, David, this cow connection, and they're fighting. You know, it's almost like the coordination, you know, the correlation with everything with David Paulding's talking about. They was extracting cows, extracting elk. You know, there's war from heaven. There's these creatures coming down and start grabbing and abducting people, abducting the cattle, the animals, and everything. Is this what the Epic of Gilgamesh is talking about? I mean, what is it, David? I mean, could that be the same exact thing when it says in the Bible in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new in the sun? Is there something? I mean, what do we got going on here? The dream tablet. We got the Gilgamesh's body being buried. We got resurrection. We got Egypt popping off. Everything. I mean, all these ancient antediluvian world is coming to fruition. It's coming to light. Well, what is all that? What's your take, Brother David?
Well, I think you're spot on there. And I think we're driven to the conclusion that perhaps the reason for the worship of the cow in so many places in antiquity could be because we have fallen entities that look just like that. Now, we're going to go to the scriptures, and we're going to look at another very, very interesting thing. In Psalm 50 and 10, it says, "For every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills." Now, it's fascinating that the Hebrew word that underlies the word cattle there is behemoth. Behemoth. And behemoth in Scripture is classified as a cattle. Now, in Job 40, verses 15 to 17, we read here what behemoth was like. It says, "Behold now behemoth, which I made with thee, he eateth grass as an ox. Lo now, his strength is in his loins, and his force is in the navel of his belly. He moveth his tail like a cedar. The sinews of his stones are wrapped together." And many, for some reason, many commentators believe this is a hippopotamus. But if, you look at a hippopotamus and they got that little itty bitty squiggly tail. They don't have a tail like a cedar. And this is descriptive. Many people think of a brontosaurus when they read this scripture. Certainly it is not a hippopotamus. But in the book of Enoch, it also talks about the behemoth, and always, as in Job chapter 40, we see the behemoth associated with the Leviathan. It says here in the book of Enoch, "On that day were two monsters parted, a female monster named Leviathan to dwell in the abysses of the oceans over the fountains of the waters, but the male is named Behemoth, who occupied with his breast a waste wilderness named Duodane, on the east of the garden where the elect and righteous dwell, where my grandfather was taken up the seventh from Adam, the first man whom the Lord of spirits created. And I besought the other angel that he should show me the might of those monsters, how they were parted on one day and cast, the one into the abysses of the sea and the other into the dry land of the wilderness." Now, there's no explanation given as to why they were parted, but the only thing I can think of, here we have two distinct species. We have the Leviathan, which looks pretty, it is describing like a sea creature, a dragon in the sea that breathes fire, like literally a dragon in the water. And then we have this huge creature, behemoth, on the land. And, it's kind of like we did with our kids. When our kids got to fighting, we'd separate them. And when they got to doing things they shouldn't, they were separated. And I think quite possibly this could have been Satan's first attempt at genetic manipulation by taking, somehow having the Leviathan and the Behemoth, that they would somehow produce some kind of a genetic freak. And I think, for my opinion, I think that some of these dinosaurs that they have found, I think that they could have been the product of genetic manipulation. Some of them are so horrible and terrifying that I think that that's exactly what might have happened. But here in Baruch chapter 29 and verse 4, it says, "And Behemoth shall be revealed from his place, and Leviathan shall ascend from the sea, those two great monsters which I created on the fifth day of creation, and shall have kept until that time, and they shall be for food for all that is left. Now, it's an amazing text, and this is a non-canonical text, so we have to look at it in less than the full weight of Scripture. But there is evidence from ancient text and non-canonical writings that would verify that perhaps this is a possible clean food source that is being prepared by God for people in the last days. And is always, as I look at what Satan does, Satan is always the great imitator. So for Satan to take and have a counterfeit food supply that is genetically contaminated using the very same creatures, this is something that I could not dismiss. And just from the spiritual aspect, from what we see in the Word of God, and this is Isaiah 66:17, and it speaks to a last days prophecy. And it says, they that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith the Lord. And the Bible talks about the wrath of God being poured out on people because they are eating things they shouldn't eat, and knowingly so. So my conclusions here, Brian, and I want to hear your final thoughts, is that there is a spiritual war on beef. I don't think it's an accident that beef is expensive and pork is cheap. And there's just so many aspects here that speak to genetic mutilation and to the ancient worship of this animal that we could very well have fallen entities that look very much like cattle. And perhaps Mr. Lear isn't too far off the mark when he says that they're trying to produce almost humans through the genetic blending of human and cattle DNA. What are your final thoughts here this evening, Brian? And thank you so much for coming along on the ride tonight. We really appreciate it. And what are your final thoughts there, my friend?
Well, it's an honor, David. It's an honor for being on here. And the final thoughts here, I'm thinking about, bringing like certain food supplies, taking some out, bringing certain things in that we never had before. And I'm thinking about the greatest deception to come upon mankind. When you talk about the Illuminati and all these other characters, the final card is an alien, let's just say fake alien invasion. And one would have to wonder if they're really going to, because they're not teaching this in your churches today, where we're talking about the Genesis 6 narrative and the Nephilim. One of the greatest deceptions is to have secret technology since the 1800s and had literally offset civilization, and people not understanding what 0-point energy is, what technology is in general. And we've all been lied to about certain things, but these is definitely fallen angel technology passed down to humans. They're admitting it. All these whistleblowers are saying these are not intentional craft. Well, excuse me, they're intentional crafts. They call them donations. I think Dr. Stephen Greer was referring to that. So if the UFOs are dropping their donations so the humans can basically restore it to some way of mixing the human stance on it. And I think that's what we have. We have a Mod Podge of human technology, but it's still passed down from the angels. And then you have the fallen angel narrative. And then you have whatever else comes from that, whatever we create, right? Whatever, you're talking about the cow-like slash hybrids, these mouse-like slash hybrids, pig-like men, etc., monkey men, whatever. I think it all corresponds with the Genesis 6 narrative. And like I said earlier, nothing new under the sun, David. And I think, with that being said, this has been a very, very interesting program. And I think the cattle mutilations, bringing that in, and I mean, wow, David, there's so much here to chew on, literally. And I'm just so thankful to be part of it, David. And thank you, John and David, for having me on here.
Well, thank you so much, Brian. We really, really appreciate you coming on, and we'll be seeing you again, absolutely. And it is time, my friends, if you appreciate, and I know you do, our Midnight Riders, and also our new listeners here on the Midnight Ride, if you have appreciated this broadcast and you believe in the vision that we have here on the Midnight Ride, bringing the things that we see in this world that are unexplainable and giving them an explanation in the Word of God. We're going to ask you on the count of three. We're going to do what we call the Pounder's Pound. And on three, we want you to hit that like button and hit it with just a little bit of attitude. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, boom. Hit that like button. And we thank you so much for that. And we want all of you to continue in prayer for John. And we're going to be seeing him real soon. I guarantee you he's doing a lot of work. John was running the broadcast here this evening. So just continued prayers for him. So
amen.
With that, we're going to conclude our broadcast tonight, as always, with great thankfulness to all of you and to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for enabling us once again to speak the truth on this platform. So with that, until next Saturday night, 10 p.m. Central, a big high five and good night, everybody, from the Midnight Ride.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up, rise up, rise up.